We say things like, maybe later, perhaps another time, or I'll see you tomorrow. But for some of us, there won't be a tomorrow. Listen as your worst nightmares come to life. These nightmares have become someone's reality. My name is Justin Crowley, and this is The Murder Project. Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 29 of The Murder Project. In this week's episode, we're going to be doing a debrief only because, as you guys know, we got the Two Not Cops Part 3 episode that will come up after this one. In today's episode, we are going to be covering the case of Michelina Lewandowska. And I know on most episodes we cover cases of murder as indicated in the name of the Murder Project, but every now and then we like to slide in a story of survival, which is what we are going to be doing on this episode. If you're new to the Murder Project, the debrief episode is where I sit down with my good friend and former police officer Mike Smith to discuss these cases further. In the debrief, we discuss the cases from both sides of the aisle, theories that we might have, and anything we think needs a second look. The debrief is an unscripted and off-the-cuff commentary about the cases that we are currently covering. The hope of the debrief is to break the cases down further, but in a relaxed environment with the true crime that we love, but also some laughter. So let's get the episode started. My main man, Mike.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
Good to have you back.
It is nice. We've had a few weeks off, but I am excited for tonight's episode because I love a good survival tale.
Yep.
Of any kind, but especially ones where the intent was clearly murder.
Mm-hmm.
And it was started by somebody who's a complete yutz. But we'll get into that.
Yeah, just a total idiot, total doofus. And that's one of the things we like doing in these survival stories, especially is picking one where you can, if you want to, literally clown on the guy or girl, usually guy, that just totally screws this thing up. And we can celebrate the survivor in this in a way that they truly deserve. Mm-hmm. And like you said, we had a couple weeks of unscheduled time away, but as everybody knows, our schedules are a little bit crazy, and we had a few things that came up. I had I had a lot of work stuff going on, and then I ended up doing another race.
No.
That
No way. Yeah, he sure did, and it was a tough one.
It was the hardest one that I've ever done so far. I did that Ironman 70.3 at the end of June, and this was so much worse than anything I've ever done in my life. And that was a ultra marathon. It's a 50K, which is 31 miles. It ended up being 31.4 miles, and I'm going to give myself the 0.4.
You know what?
Because
you take them.
Yeah.
You did the dang thing.
It was a 31.4 mile trail run through the Paladuro Canyon, which is about 30 minutes south of Amarillo. And it ended up getting, in some areas that day, up to 100 degrees at the end of October, which none of us expected. Nobody out there thought it should have been 20 degrees cooler than that.
Yeah, well, that place is a natural convection oven.
Yes. And so it was 31.4 grueling miles, and like I said, it was all on foot. It was a run, and I ended up walking some of it, obviously, because what got me is that even when I go down there and ride my mountain bike, or you go hiking down there or anything like that, one of the most famous areas down there is the Lighthouse Trail.
Yep.
And so I ran back in the Lighthouse Trail. I had a 3-mile loop back through there, and I ran right by. And the reason they call it the Lighthouse Trail is there's a rock formation that kind of looks like a lighthouse. Mm-hmm. I ran by that rock formation pretty close twice and never saw it. That's how and the only reason I realized
just
that. Just
tunnel visioned out.
Yeah, is because I started seeing people posting pictures on Facebook afterwards, and they're like, awesome view of the lighthouse. It's hard to get this close, huh? And I was like, I didn't see any of that. And it's because I was looking down like I had, like you said, I had tunnel vision. I was just trying to get one foot in front of the other. And it was really fun about the first 14 miles. And the way that they had it set up is I had to run 2 loops. They had a 25K, which was 15 and a half. You had to run 1 loop. And then we ran 2 loops, and then the 50 milers had to run 3 loops with an extra 4 miles on the first loop, which I'm so glad I did not do the 50 miler because I would have died. And there was a couple of times, races like this, they get you closer to the Lord.
Yes.
In one of 2 ways. Yeah, in one of 2 ways. The first way is that you're going to be talking to Jesus a lot while you're out there. Mm-hmm. Especially on my second loop, 25 miles in, my nutrition's all jacked up. I'm retaining water because I had too much salt. Mm-hmm. I got my mixtures, mixing my drinks too hard.
Yeah.
And so I started retaining water. My hands were swelling really bad, my feet. And it was so bad I had to take my wedding ring off because it was cutting circulation off on my finger. And then I was sick, so I didn't want to eat. And then my calories crashed, and it was just a huge mess. So that last part of the race, I was just really trying to gut out and walk, you see the people in the mall that are like speed walking.
Yeah.
That's literally what I was trying to do.
It's good for your heart health.
Just to get, it's good. It's good aerobic exercise. And if you guys are interested in exercising, it's very important if you want to lose weight to know the difference between aerobic and anaerobic workout. Mm-hmm. I won't explain that because it'll take but look into it. But
thank you.
But I was out there, and like I said, it's 2 ways. You're going to be either out there talking to God, or you're going to go meet Him.
Yeah.
And I felt a couple of times like I was gonna take a trip to the old upper room, take a dirt nap right there
in the dirt,
the eternal dirt nap. I didn't. #blessed.
Yes.
And
of course.
and I made it through to the finish line. I feel bad for my wife and kids because they had to wait out there for an incredibly long time because it took me way longer. It took me hours longer than I thought it would do. It would take me to do it. Ended up taking me a little over 9 hours.
Oh my Lord.
To complete it. And I was on a pretty good clip on that first lap. And then after that, you get into this area called the Rock Garden. And on my second loop, after I was already dehydrated and feeling terrible, it was like hell on earth. Yeah. The elevation climbs and all the stuff. It was nasty. I didn't like. You notice a lot more on that second loop. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Like anytime the elevation changes, you just get really sad, and that's a lot.
Yeah. On
a trail run, and the different body parts just starting to hurt really bad, and
yes.
And then it's just like punching through to try to get to that finish line, which I'm so glad that I made it, but I got to tell you, it was pretty difficult.
31.4 miles on foot. That's impressive.
And half a right hip.
Yeah.
And
I wish anything about what the time I spent during those 2 weeks break of mine was nearly as interesting, but it was 100% not. Just crazy schedule, and I was sick for a little bit because of seasonal changes. I get ill seasonally, about like anyone does.
Well, and here the ups and downs. It's 80 degrees one day,
right?
It's 40 the next.
Yeah.
Today the wind was blowing.
Oh, it was horrible today. Yeah, I about half my job is outside.
Yeah,
and it's unloading and then going into the store, then coming back out, and then packing up to leave to the next site. And today was especially bad because it was just blowing dirt.
Yeah.
Not like dust. People are like, oh yeah, it's windy, so there's dust. No, in the Panhandle, it blows dirt, just whole dirt.
And depending where you're at, like sand into your eyeballs.
Oh yeah, it was too. So I was just getting blasted all day. So I sound a little congested just because the wind was just blowing mouthfuls of dirt into my face all day. My teeth were crunching through dirt an hour after I got home, even after I washed my face.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but we're ready to get back to it. And of course, when we do a combined debrief, we want to pick a good survival tale. And this is a good one. And it starts in 2005, I believe.
Yeah. So we have Michelina Lewandowska. And I know that I'm probably not saying her name exactly the way it's supposed to be said because she was born in Poland and she met her boyfriend, Marcin Kasprzak, and in Poland in 2005. And they later decided that they wanted to move to England.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they moved to his parents' home in Huddersfield, West Yorkshire.
Right. And they so they were living with his parents there, and they decided to start a life together. And in 2008, so we're 3 years down the road, in 2008, Michelina became pregnant, and they had a son, and his name was Jacob.
Jacob, yeah.
And these spellings are all different, but it's Jacob.
Yeah.
And so they had, I know that, I'm not sure exactly what they're obviously younger at the time. I'm not sure what the aspirations are, but they moved to England, and I'm sure it would probably be maybe for a better economic situation.
Yeah.
Something based on that.
Support.
Yeah. And then also having the support of Marcin's parents being there. They have a place to live that they don't have to pay for, and now they have a child. But things are going to start to get a little bit sour, and the crazy thing about this is you don't really find a whole lot of research about the time that they spent together previous to the incident.
No, you don't. And I looked at a dozen articles, and of course it's just all the same information regurgitated in different ways.
Yeah.
You know, which is fine. I'm sure maybe there's a bit of privacy to the matter because of what she went through. But as far as like cases, it feels like weird to say, but it feels like if the better off that the victim is, the less information there is to find.
Yeah, that's so true. And what's weird about survivor stories, I heard someone talking about this the other day, is that a lot of people don't want to know like a lot of the intimate details of it because it's more real. It becomes more real because the person lived through it.
Right.
It's like, it's strange talking about, or it seems less strange talking about a case where you know at the end of it the person dies.
Right.
And you can be like, oh, well, you know, unfortunate things happen and this and that. But then you start talking about survivor stories, and to some people they don't like that kind of conversation because those things become more real to them, like, oh crap, maybe this could happen to me, when in reality any of it could. That's why it's like you never know who's going to be telling your story at the end of it. Maybe it doesn't turn out very well. And for her, I think it's good that, I mean, obviously it's good that she survived.
Yeah,
but
of course.
There's a lot of things I think based off of her survival that, and the reason why we decided to do this one is that we can talk through the whole event and to kind of tell you where we think the parts that she did that were outstanding, and then the parts we feel like where some of it gets a little, I think it gets a little fuzzy when it gets reported so many different times.
Sure.
And you get different stories one way or the other.
Details start changing a little bit, you know, phone game type of thing, playing telephone.
Yeah. So
leading up to the incident, there started to be some unhappiness in the relationship.
Yeah.
And that's not really known like in a super detail, but they do split up at one point, right?
Yeah. So they were engaged to be married, and Marcin had given Michelina an engagement ring, which will be a huge factor in this whole thing later on. But it said that the relationship got a little rocky, and like I said, it's not clear what is going on exactly, but I think we can do a little bit of speculating here and be on the right track, because they kind of had this on again, off again relationship. But the weird thing is that I think it's not been covered a lot in the other research I did, is they continued to live together.
Right, yeah.
In Marcin's parents' house, even though they were kind of broken up. And then it would seem like Marcin wanted to get back with Michelina and kind of get the relationship back on track, because they did have this 3-year-old together. But overall, that they ended up still being unhappy. And this was where one of the things they talk about is that Marcin becomes a little distant because he decides that he wants to be a bodybuilder.
Right. Yeah.
And the word that I heard used a lot was
An aspiring.
He was an aspiring bodybuilder, which to me is just a very nice way of saying not a bodybuilder. I mean, we could be aspiring bodybuilders right now.
It's just a way to say that he worked out a lot, which he did. He was going 5 times a week.
Yeah. And I showed you a picture of him before, and that one picture I had, and then we saw the picture of him, you know, he was just online flexing. And I'm serious, like, I'll post a link in the show notes that'll take you to one of the articles I read about it. It's got some pictures about this guy, but he looks like just a huge doofus.
He does.
And it's sad because she is she's so pretty, and it looks like, it's like one of those situations, because we know the whole story, but he starts going to the gym. He starts getting his swole on.
Right, yeah.
But the regular avenue of just lifting weights, eating healthy, isn't going well enough for him. So he's got to bump it up a tick.
Yeah, and go ahead and get addicted to some anabolic steroids.
Perfect.
Yeah, that sounds perfect.
Yeah, I mean, if you're having trouble in your life, steroids seem like the perfect thing that you should... I mean, alcohol abuse, substance abuse, drugs, steroids, these are all good things to help you get through hard times in your life.
That's right. It was going to help him get closer to his goal.
And I'm joking, by the way. Don't do any of those things. Yeah. And also don't have another kid.
Yeah.
I've seen so many people, or I've heard of so many people, it's like relationships on the rocks, and then they have another kid and they're like, this will solve a problem.
It'll bring us closer together for some time, ?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, don't do that. If it's over, it's over.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's doing anabolic steroids. He's working out all the time. He's probably feeling pretty good about himself. Now, to be fair, he does look like he is muscular. Yeah. I wouldn't call him a bodybuilder and that like he's chiseled out of stone or anything like that. But you can see that he's got a broad chest and like big shoulders, big arms.
Yep.
So he's making progress on that front.
He's getting them gains.
Yeah, so that probably didn't go to his head at all.
No, not a chance. And then I think that, and it's also stated in some of the research that, one of the downsides of being at the gym all the time or starting to get that positivity back about yourself at people in the gym or something like that is that people sometimes in the gym start gravitating towards each other. Mm-hmm. And you have some relationships that may start on the side, or in this case, I think that Marcin was looking at himself thinking like he's making these gains. He's going in there and get a pump in every day.
Yeah.
And he thinks that he now it kind of elevates him to some degree. Like Michelina's, she's old. That's the old news.
Yeah.
That's the old life. Like I'm in this new lifestyle now, get a new girlfriend, get it, and like I said, that's kind of speculation on my part, but it seems like the problems start when he starts hitting the gym.
Oh yeah.
Consistently.
Yeah. And he's, their relationship was rocky and he's like, well, I'll just move on to something better. But there's just something in his way.
Yeah. There's it's just her.
Yeah.
And that she is in the way, but more specifically, it is the fact that Michelina said that she got into her parents aren't there.
Right.
And her support system is him and his parents. And she's got her son, but she decides that she wants to move back to Poland where she can be closer to her family.
Right.
And this, from England to Poland where she's living at to where she wants to move to, it's not a short distance.
No.
It
looks like, to put it in American terms, like halfway across the country.
Yeah, for us.
Like quite literally. Just at an eyeball view, because we pulled it up on the map just to kind of look at it. It would be like someone moving from California to like Mississippi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But with a lot more obstacles in the way. But I mean, right. A plane ride either way. But and he's not cool with that. So he thinks to himself like, well, if she wants to go, she can go, but she shouldn't take my son. And this kind of sets you up for one of those classic like, well, now I got to do something about it stories.
There's only one thing he can think of.
Yeah, he's got one thing he's got to do, and that's he's got to get rid of her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she ain't gonna leave on her own.
Yeah, and what's crazy is that this guy is very, very sophisticated in what he does.
Mm-hmm. So it starts with the setup.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, do you want to go do some shopping?
Yeah.
Yeah, and which maybe she was, obviously, to me it looks like she was like, oh, okay, so he wants to start spending time together.
Yeah.
And so...
But the bait and switch.
Right.
You gotta get, if your guy calls you and he's like, hey, do you want to go shopping? I don't know about anybody else, but I would probably not call my wife and be like, hey, would you like to go shopping? Unless it was a special occasion.
Sure.
But that, to me, should have been, maybe a red flag. But you're right. In her situation, maybe she was thinking this is a chance to...
I mean, yeah, she's probably like, hey, Maybe this is a chance for us to mend the fence, to maybe that's not the right metaphor, but maybe to start, trying to patch this up, and maybe I won't. Maybe we can work it out because we have a child together.
Yeah, and one of the things I think that supports that is that it states that she typically did not wear her engagement ring anymore. But in this circumstance, she went ahead and put it on.
Right.
She put her engagement ring back on. And so maybe she is thinking to herself, this is a good opportunity for us to mend our relationship. So he calls and says, hey, do you want to go shopping? She says, absolutely. And their child, Jacob, is in the company of Marcin's parents. So they've got this quote unquote date set up. They're going to go and do some shopping. But when Michelina gets to the door, things take a little bit of a turn.
Right. So she was, what I think I read is that she was like getting her makeup on, prettying herself up for the trip. And then she leaves the bathroom and sees Marcin standing there.
Okay, so it's all right there together.
Yes, I believe that's correct. So
she was already on location. And
yeah.
Then, okay.
So she walks out and is kind of surprised to see that. The good news is, for anyone who's wondering, is that their child is not here. In the residence where this incident is about to take place. He was spending the day with his grandparents. Yeah,
and so you're right. Yeah, Michelina. So she goes to exit the restroom, and Marcin has a friend over at the house at this time.
Yeah, Patrick Boris. Yeah, I'm probably not saying that right,
but we know his name's Patrick.
Yeah, and he's 18 years old.
Yeah.
So he's already 7 years younger than Marcin at this point.
Yeah, because Marcin's 25 and Michelina's 27.
Right.
At this time. And so Jacob's got Marcin's got one of his friends over there, significantly younger than him, Patrick, and they're both standing in the doorway looking at her.
Right.
And so I would think that, and it says that they have sort of like eerie smiles plastered across their face.
Oh, so she doesn't, just chilling in the way I envision it.
Yeah, so she doesn't realize this, but these boys have already cooked up a plan.
Right.
And she is involved more in this plan than I guarantee she wants to be.
Oh, yeah.
And Marcin grabs Michelina, and he says that he wants to show her something. And what he shows her is a 300,000 volt stun gun that he had in his pocket.
Yeah, and this is a stun gun that I saw a picture of it in one of the articles. It looks like a stun gun out of like the 90s.
Yeah, something you see in like a 90s movie.
Yeah, this thing is like, it's got like a handgun type design, more like a power tool type design.
Yeah.
But it's definitely big enough, like, I mean, it'd probably fill his whole hand and hang out both ends. Like, it's pretty large.
Absolutely.
And so he whips this thing out.
Yep. Puts it up against Michelina's neck, pulls the trigger, delivers 300,000 volts from this stun gun, in which one of the things we wanted to talk about was the difference between a stun gun and a taser.
Oh, yeah.
Because you'll hear it kind of mixed in the research where they say taser gun or they say fired.
Yeah. Shot her,
things like that. But this is a standard stun gun that does not discharge projectiles that stick into your body. Like Mike and I, whenever we were going through our law enforcement training, we were tased.
Right.
We were shot with a taser gun that has probes that have barbs on them. We've talked about that in the Two Not Cops episode. This is a stun gun only, so it does not discharge a projectile.
No. This is what would be considered a drive stun weapon.
Yeah.
So you pull the trigger to activate the arc between the two points of contact, and then you push it against somebody like a body part. And so he does this to her neck.
Yeah.
Which
300,000 is
that's a significant amount of power. And so the effect that would have would be just an absolute surge to all of your senses, just a complete overload of your brain circuitry. Your body would spasm. It would probably knock out your vision for a second, especially hitting it in the neck.
Yeah, that close to the head, yeah, for sure.
Lots of muscle contractions. It'd probably take your breath away. Mm-hmm. Definitely buckle your knees.
Yeah.
Like, this is what this is designed to do. It's designed to stun you.
Yeah.
So that you can, it's not designed to be lethal in any capacity with like a driving stun. It's made to like interrupt somebody, physically.
Yeah. Enough for you to be able to, the design of it is enough to be able to create an opportunity for you to get away.
To escape or to, in this case, overpower someone.
Right.
Because their body's just like, whoa!
Yeah.
They're just completely overloaded sensory-wise. And it works, unfortunately, due to surprise and the fact that he's so much bigger than her.
Yeah, which is weird to me, because if you look at it, like you said, from an advantage of overpowering someone, he already had that advantage before he had the stun gun.
Yeah.
And, he outweighed her by, at least 80 pounds,
right.
Let's just say 75, 80 pounds. And there's some discrepancy about his weight. I've seen anything from 190 pounds all the way up to like 235 pounds. But I think the difference is because in some of the research you see, it tells their weight in pounds. Some gives it in kilograms. Some give it in stones.
Mm-hmm. I believe a stone is like 17 pounds.
Okay.
1 stone.
All right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Just a piece of information that I think I know, and I really hope I'm right about that.
Yeah, because we did not look that up before this. But
yeah, I'm not going to look into that
right now while I'm talking.
Now, yeah.
Okay. All right. So he hits her in the neck with the stun gun. She falls to the floor, obviously in pain, as Mike just talked about, all the things that were probably happening to her at this time. He puts his knee down on her chest, kind of holds her down, and he says that he is going to kill her. And then, Michelina asks him if he's going to kill her, and he responds and tells her to don't be scared, not to be scared, like as if that was even an option. And then there is some talk about him hitting her with the stun gun again in the neck.
I've also heard that he stuns her a second time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the amount of disorientation she must have been feeling. Now, not to mention adrenaline, the fear. That must have been just horrible.
Yeah.
And real quick, a stone is 14 pounds.
Oh, you were close. I'm going to that's fine.
That's my second guess. Not that I looked it up at all right now.
Nice. I believe you too.
Thanks.
So, Marcin yells at his buddy Patrick, who's on scene, to get some packaging tape, and they bound her wrists and her ankles.
Yes.
And at this point, they leave her tied up, and she's slumped against the wall. And it says that they left her there for a few hours. And I'm not sure what is taking place during all this, but one of the most significant things that I could think of while I was looking at this is that Marcin and Patrick believe that Michelina is unconscious.
Right.
That they hit her with the stun gun and she passed out. Like you said, this overload to all the circuits in the body. She's unconscious. She's out. They leave her there for hours. And what I think is important to discuss in this is that is not typical for tasers or stun guns to incapacitate somebody in that manner.
No,
that's movie stuff.
Yeah, that's like exactly. That's Hollywood stuff. A stun gun or taser generally does, unless they fall and knock themselves out on something,
which can happen.
It doesn't render you unconscious at all. Maybe there could be a fainting effect.
Yeah.
From just not just the stun gun strike, but your body's response to it. But you're definitely not going to be rendered unconscious for hours.
No, the turnaround on something like that, if, like you said, there is a fainting effect, is going to be pretty quick.
Yeah, it's going to be seconds.
Because the thing about that we talked about, like with pepper spray, is that pepper spray sticks around for so long. It burns, it hurts, it's there, it doesn't go away. 30 minutes to an hour, you're sitting there in agonizing pain. With a stun gun, as soon as the trigger is let off, the pain is gone. Yeah. It's instantly gone. Now, it hurts really bad, but as soon as they pull off the trigger, the pain's gone.
Yeah, the source of the pain the discomfort, whatever you want to use to describe it, it's gone. It's just your body's response echoing is what you're feeling.
And so in the movies, you see people all the time. They get hit with tasers or stun guns and they pass out. That doesn't normally happen.
No.
And so the fact that Michelina acts like she's unconscious, it plays into this kind of stereotype that we have about tasers, that it knocks somebody out. So Michelina is pretending, and Marcin and Patrick are none the wiser.
Right. And I would definitely consider this the first step that she took in the right direction to her survival.
Yeah.
Because, God forbid, she continued to struggle.
Right.
Which would have aggravated the aggressors, both Marcin and Patrick, since there's two of them.
They would have panicked.
And who knows how much worse they could have hurt her.
Yeah.
They could have pummeled her, choked her, you name it. They could have done it because they're like, oh man, she's not going down.
Yeah.
And they could have just done any number of horrible things to, quote unquote, finish the job.
And typically in the stories that we talk about, and we don't know in this case, but typically we always talk about how the person who does the assaulting or murdering does something to amp up just before the event happens, or in the process of the event. The adrenaline is high, everything is high. So if Michelina would have continued to fight back, as you said, things could have gone in a really different direction. But the fact that she doesn't allows the situation to calm down to a point that ends up letting the two idiots decide what they want to do with the body, because they think that they have her in a state that she's not going to come out of.
Right. And so they go and fetch like a fairly large box, I believe.
Yeah, I've heard it described as like some sort of computer box or appliance box or something, but in my opinion, I mean, it's got to be big enough to cram somebody into it.
Right.
It definitely, like we talked about before the episode started, it definitely wasn't long enough to stretch her out in.
No.
She would have definitely been crammed into it.
They would have put her into like a fetal position is what I'm thinking. And I haven't found anything to confirm that, so this is a little speculation. But she's like folded up in there a little bit. And not only that, but they stuff her in there, and then they tape the crap out of the box. I mean, they use that packing tape that they had bound her wrists and ankles with, and they go ahead and tape that box up.
Yep. And then at one point they say, like, after they put her in the box and tape it shut with her inside, it's only at this point that she screams at Marcin to let her go.
Right.
So now he knows that she is conscious, but she's already in the box.
Right.
And she tells him to let her go. And Marcin, it says that Marcin knelt down and laughed and said, "I've hated you for 4 years. You'll never see your son again."
Wow, that is dark.
Yeah, that's kind of one of those things where like he's putting the bow on it. Like he's saying like, this is your last stop.
Yeah, laughing, maniacal. Yeah. I mean, that's just like, wait, what? Because now he's probably feeling pretty confident about himself. Yeah. He's got his own adrenaline dumped. He's like, man, I'm taking care of business. I'm already here. Like, I have to finish his task.
Yeah, he's got his buddy there to pump him up.
Exactly. Like, they're definitely bouncing off each other. Yeah. There's probably some really goofy, like, joking. I can't imagine the type of humor where they're like, well, now we're going to do with her body.
Yeah. And I'd like to know how this conversation went down between Marcin and Patrick, like, the recruitment.
Yeah. Definitely a very, very good question. Like, you're just sitting there and he's like, hey, man, come over here. Come over to my plate. Actually, meet me at this smoothie shop. I got to get my post-workout, like, calories and my proteins in.
Maybe get a place over there and get some protein.
Yeah. Get some spinach in there. Maybe some kale. Maybe some of that triticum aestivum, wheatgrass.
With some peanut butter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I could just imagine. He's like, so here's the deal. I don't like my baby mama. And I'm going to kill her.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure I can do it on my own. And this kid, 18 years old, and I realize that's an adult, but stay with me here.
Not there.
He's like, you know what? Great.
Sounds good.
How do you want to do it? How can I prove my fraternal brotherhood to you in this moment? I'm going to join you.
Yeah.
I don't know a dang thing about your relationship, but if you say she's got to go, she's got to go.
Yeah, he's at the, and he's like, listen, Patrick, I've been up at the gym, get my pump on, get my swole on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm catching some eyes from the ladies up there,
Mm-hmm.
and this girl is dragging me down.
Yeah.
So you know what we got to do? He's like, yeah, Wayne, what's up? He's like, we got to kill her. And he's like, yeah, but hold up.
Yeah, wait, what?
We? Like, you and I got to kill her? And he's like, yeah, I can't do it by myself.
I can't do it by myself,
What
man.
if things go bad?
I need you there to back me up.
Yeah. We're in this together. That's another good point about, when this is like one of those things you tell your when you're talking to your kids. You're like, listen, the only reason these kids are bringing you into it is because they don't want to go down by themselves.
That's right.
They want to have somebody with them. Or in some instances, the poor sap that comes along to help out ends up being the fall guy.
Right.
Where he's like, well, I didn't do it. But you know what? You could look at this guy, Patrick. He's got a few screws loose.
Definitely. Anytime the conversation turns to just casual murder, and you're like, wait, what? This is a real plan? He's like, yeah, no, seriously, I got to get rid of her. She wants to move back to Poland and take my boy. And you know what? I ain't about that life.
Yeah.
I'm a big, strong man now.
Yeah. And he could also be using Patrick as an alibi guy. Now, I don't want to say what his intentions were with Patrick, but it could be that he needed the help. It could be that he needed a fall guy. It could be that he needed an alibi.
Right.
It could have been all of those things. Who knows? But after they get Michelina crammed into this cardboard box, because there's no other way to say that she got into this small box. And if you look at that link that I'll post, you'll see the box on there. It's not very big. So she's crammed in this box, and then they drag her out of the house and put her in the trunk of Patrick's car.
Right, yeah. And they didn't even go that far, because they're still in the neighborhood in the city of Huddersfield.
Yeah.
They just took her to a wooded area nearby.
Yeah, by a golf course, I believe.
Yeah.
And so Michelina's in the trunk, or the boot, I guess, of the car, and they go into that wooded area, and they decide, okay, we got to dig a grave.
Actually, I believe I've read that that this area, it was pre-dug.
It was already. Oh yeah, it was already there.
Yeah. So this is.
So I missed that part of this whole thing.
Yeah.
So he's already gone to the location.
Yeah. They knew where to go. They had this plan. They pre-dug this. You can call it a grave.
Sort of. Yeah.
Yeah. It would be grave.
Yeah.
It's not real big.
No.
And which we'll find out here shortly. But yeah, they take her there, and they know exactly where they're going and exactly where they're going to put her in this box into this would-be grave. And they put her in there and they fill it in. And it ends up being about 4 to 5 inches of dirt on top of this box that she's in. Now, area-wise, that's still a good amount of weight.
Oh yeah, it would. If you do like standard, because I wanted to actually look into this. Use like standard weight of dirt, and then you do like a length time, width time, height. It's several hundred pounds. It would be at the minimum several hundred pounds. If it was a actual, say, 5 foot by 3 foot by 4 inch, it would have been around 450 pounds. So we can say,
wow,
several hundred pounds of dirt, even at 4 inches.
Yeah.
And the worst part about that trip from the car to the grave is that would-be grave, is that they drug her. This thing had handles on it, and they drug her across the ground to get over to the gravesite. So that, and she stated that her back was on the part of the box that was being drug across the ground over this area that was filled with rocks and uneven ground surface, and that wouldn't be extremely painful. And if you can't think of how bad that would hurt, go to a place that has a lot of rocks and uneven elevation, jump in your sleeping bag, just have your buddy pull you across it.
Yeah, and not only that, just imagine the fear that she's feeling right now. I mean, she's still conscious.
Yeah. And
she knows that he said as much, that he is going to kill her, that he wants her dead, and that he hates her.
Yep.
So just throw that little cherry on top for this entire just terrible situation. And then they take her out of the trunk of the car and just drag her to this site. So she knows that they're disposing of her.
Yeah.
In this moment, she knows that they are taking her somewhere to get rid of her body.
Yeah. And luckily, it was even talked about that she said that when they had put her in the box, there had been talk about possibly using some sort of a plastic bag for something. And I think she stated that she thought they were going to maybe put that over her head.
Yeah.
And thank goodness that they didn't.
Well,
that would have changed this story a whole lot depending on,
oh God, yeah. The horror. Yeah, that would have just finished, that would definitely have finished the job.
Yeah,
if she wouldn't have been able to physically resist pulling the bag off or tearing a hole in it, that would have definitely been the end of her.
Yeah, and hopefully I don't know if she was bound in the front, her hands were bound in the front or the back, but yeah, hopefully if it was the front, she could at least tore a little hole in there. And then also, luckily for her, this box did have holes in it. Mm-hmm. So she was not continuously using up the air that she had inside of the box, because if it was, say, like a coffin or something like that, there's talk about how much air you have while you're in there, which for this situation, it doesn't matter.
No.
Can you run out of air in a situation like that? Yes, especially once the box is covered. But before then, she's in a better state than others would have been, because she's at least still has the availability of getting oxygen. Right,
yeah. So they bury her in there. They fill it in with dirt, about the 4 to 5 inches of dirt on top, still a couple 100 pounds. And then they put an 88 to 90 pound log across it. And I imagine this log had two purposes. One, to be another barrier to prevent her from getting out. Spoiler alert. Mm-hmm. Doesn't work. But also probably to cover up the area that they dug.
Right. It would be a barrier so that you couldn't accidentally walk across it. You'd have to walk around that area. And then also, I guess it would kind of maybe blend in with the terrain of where that's at. It looks like a tree, a smaller tree that had fallen.
Yeah.
And then they just picked it up at the ends and drug it over there.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It would be at least some sort of a barrier where you would have to intentionally go to the spot underneath the log to try to find her.
Right.
And if you're none the wiser, which nobody would have been, then it wouldn't have been typical for you to walk across that area.
Right. And there's no ceremony here. No. They just fill it in, they put the log on top, and they just dip.
Yeah,
They're like, this job is complete.
Yep.
The task has been completed. Where are we going to go? You know what sounds good? Let's go grab some walk-around money.
Let's go steal some money.
Yeah. So they go to an ATM. Was it an ATM?
Yep.
Yeah. An ATM, and they draw out $500 worth.
Yeah, 500 pounds.
$500.
Which, yeah, $500. It's all relevant.
Yeah. So they take out 500 pounds using her ATM card.
Yes. Her ATM card, which we'll talk about this in a minute.
Yeah. So they bury her, and then they go take 500 pounds of her money. And where do you think they go from there?
Man, you gotta go chill.
They did. That's exactly what they did. They just went back to Patrick's house and just started busting a chill and playing some video games.
And it's, because nothing happened, it's just regular, just hanging out with my buddy Patrick.
Yeah, man.
Hey, did you know your girlfriend and mother of your child went missing? I did not, because I was over here playing video games with my friend Patrick.
You're right.
Did you not hear what I said?
Yeah.
It couldn't have been me. I've got an alibi.
Exactly.
This is my alibi, man.
This is it. He's right here.
Have you met Patrick yet?
Yeah, exactly.
Have you guys met Patrick? And so Michelina now decides that, from what I found, it stated that she waited around half an hour before she started to try to escape, which is good on her part because it allowed them to leave and think that the plan worked.
This is a legendary amount of patience this woman had.
Yeah.
I don't know if she thought this was the goal or if she was just frightened and was like, I'm just going to wait, collect myself before I make the move. But both times that she was patient, post stun gun attack and post burial, she waited, perfectly.
It paid off.
It totally paid off. And so she's like, now I've got to get out of here. I will die in here.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of time.
Now that she's covered with the dirt, she's realizing that there's a good chance that she could be using up all of her oxygen that's in the box. And I think that, giving it a half an hour time frame is probably something that they looked into from the time that they received the call to the time that they found Patrick and all of these things. Marcin and Patrick. But I don't know how you would exactly determine 30 minutes when you're in a dark box buried in a hole.
Yeah.
That time lapse would be really hard to grasp, but especially you have no idea what's going on around you. But safe to say, let's say half an hour, and she decides, okay, I got to get out of here. What she does is that she uses that engagement ring. It's got diamonds on the top of it. It's got 3 of them at the top. And she starts using that ring to cut through the thick cardboard of the box.
Well, first she cuts her bonds.
Wait, yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
she cuts the tape on her wrist and her ankles.
Yeah, she gets out. She gets free from that, which, like I'm saying, like she's in this terrible situation and she still has the clarity to think through all of these things.
Right.
Like, I got to get out of here. Okay, I got to get this tape off me.
Luckily, this isn't duct tape.
Right.
This is packing tape that, I mean, everybody here can think about how easy that is to slice through. Now, of course, wrapped around your wrists, it's still a formidable thing to escape from.
Right.
But when you start cutting into it, it quickly disintegrates. Like, you can cut through it pretty easy. And once you break like a side of packing tape, we all know how frustrating it is when you grab the corner of the packing tape and you go to peel it off to start to tape something, and the little shard of it just splits
all the way up there.
and you just lose 3 inches of it, and it just tapers, and you're like, dang it, that happens so easy. It's like shopping plastic bag thick.
Yeah.
So she's like, I'm going to use this engagement ring. I got it on my hand, and she starts sawing through using that ring, and it works perfectly.
Yeah,
and
it does the job.
Then she's like, well, why stop here? And she starts using it to cut through the thick cardboard of this box she was buried in.
Yeah, and the box did, although not very big, it did look very thick.
It did, yeah. I mean, an appliance box, it's got to be sturdy.
Yeah, it's going to have some weight in it.
Yeah.
And it was obviously strong enough to support her weight. And so she starts cutting through this box to the point where she can get, like, I think some fingers through, where she can kind of start tearing at the actual cardboard of it. And then you have to consider the fact that with every single pull and every single move that she's making, dirt is now coming into these holes.
It's falling on her. It's falling into her. She's breathing it in.
And she has no idea how deep she is.
Right. I mean,
that's something that we're privy to now.
Right.
But she doesn't know. Does she have 4 inches? Is there 3 feet on top? I mean, she has no idea. And so she starts kind of plugging through this thing, gets through. She's able to get her hand through. And I think that's when she kind of realizes that she's pretty shallow.
Luckily, yeah.
So she tears away the rest of the box, and she's able to escape out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when she realizes that she is in the middle of nowhere. She doesn't know where she's at, and that's another thing. You're taped inside this box, then you're thrown in a trunk, then you're driven. You have no idea. I mean, most of us aren't going to do like that, like in Taken, where he starts, they bound and put him in that van, and he's counting the seconds.
Right
turn, 2, 3, 4, and he's listening to the noises around him and all the stuff. Like, this isn't straight tooken.
No, it ain't straight tookens, man.
This ain't a straight tookens.
This ain't Liam Neeson's.
Liam Neeson's is not in the box, is Michelina. And she gets out. She has no idea where she is.
Yeah. She
runs to the road, and luckily it doesn't take very long, but somebody driving by sees her, and also lucky for her, because if you're interested in a lot of different true crime stuff, it's crazy to think how many times like people are stranded after a traumatic event on the side of the road, or they run up to somebody's house and the people are like,
I ain't letting you in.
I don't want none of this. I don't know what you're going through right now, but it's definitely ain't coming up in here.
Yeah. And she flags down a motorist.
Yep.
And they quickly call law enforcement.
Yep.
And they show up about 15 minutes later.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming she was still like on site where she flagged down the motorist, not far from where she escaped from.
Yeah, she's still there.
Right. So I mean, these police officers show up, and I can just imagine they could see her. She's probably dirty.
Mm-hmm.
She may even still.
She's under duress.
Yeah, she may even still have like a tape. Maybe tape still on her. I actually don't know that. I'm just assuming that it's pretty sticky. She probably didn't clear the tape completely free of her, so there's probably evidence that there's still that she was bonded. And I'm sure this cop was like, "Yeah, tell him what the deal is." And she tells him, and he's like, "What?
Hold on."
Yeah,
and she's like, "You want to see?"
Right, exactly. So this is the point where the cop's like, "Okay." Oh, is he going to take it semi-seriously at first? Of course, because as we've spoken about before, you don't know anything. All you know is what you got reported when you show up on the scene as a patrol officer. she starts telling him. He's like, oh, okay. What are the chances? Maybe this is a prank. Maybe she's having some type of mental episode. And she's like, no, I'm not. Come over here. She walks him right back to the scene where there is a tore up box protruding from a hole in the earth that she was entombed in. Yes. And he's like, oh, damn.
Oh, yeah. Maybe I'm going to call some other boys on this one.
Right.
To see if we can get something figured out.
She knows both these people. She's like, yeah, I know exactly who did this. It's these two dudes.
Yep.
And so they jump right into action. And I don't know, how long is it they go find him?
I believe it's not long after. It's right after that. They go back and, like you said, she knows who Marcin and Patrick are. Mm-hmm. So she gives them, I believe, the addresses to both locations.
Yeah.
So they're not at Marcin's house, obviously. They go over to Patrick's house, and when they get there, he tries to say, they're like, hey, what's up? He's like, hey, guys, what's going on? They're like, yeah, so we found Michelina. So, and he's like, oh man, I was just fooling.
Yeah.
You guys thought this was real?
I could not believe that. As if this guy could get any dumber than this half-assed, murder scheme.
I won't bleep you.
Okay. Even though you can, I did find that comical. He tries to say it was a prank.
Yeah. We're just trying to scare her. We're just fooling.
To scare her. Yeah. I didn't want to kill her. I just wanted to bury her in the earth. Don't be stupid.
Yeah. And the fact that they made no attempts to go back and tell her that it was a prank. They're sitting at Patrick's house playing video games.
Yeah, he's just in
like,
there.
how long are you going to leave her there? And he's like, well, maybe we're just going to leave her in the ground for 4 or 5 hours and then, go back and check on her and see how she's doing.
We had to get back to the call to duties.
Yeah.
And, can you blame me? Got to get that trigger time.
Yeah, I had to be in lobby at 3 o'clock. Otherwise, my buddies were going to go on without me.
That's what men do, officer or constable or whatever they call him over there. But that's literally what he says. He tries to act like it was all a joke.
The bobbies?
Yeah.
Are they bobbies?
Yeah. I'm not sure. I think Bobby is to them is what cop is to us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, obviously...
They get arrested.
You're arrested. They're like, oh, yeah, that's great. Here, step outside real quick. Put these on. Yeah. You're going to jail, you idiot.
Yeah, I want to show you something. It's a jail cell.
Mm-hmm.
And they go, and like I said, Marcin tries to hold on to the fact that this was a joke. I don't have any evidence to say whether or not Patrick went along with this, but I know that Patrick is in less trouble than Marcin is overall. So I don't think he probably had to do too much wheeling and dealing on his end.
I believe he beat the attempted murder.
He did.
He got kidnapping.
Yeah, he was just convicted of kidnapping, and Marcin plays this out in trial and says that it was just a joke and that he would not do that. They, of course, bring back the quotes that he said about how the fact that he did not like her, that he wanted her dead, how callous he was about it, the fact that he was laughing while he was doing it.
He said, you will never see your son again.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds pretty final to me.
The stun gun to me in the neck is a little more than a prank, unless you're like cracking cold ones with your buddy and someone pulls out, which my friend used to have one of those back in the day, like the little bitty ones, and people would zap people on the back of the leg. I don't recall anybody ever being hit in the neck and then wrapped up and then shoved in a box and then buried out in the field. I don't think that ever happened while we were hanging out. But
as far as pranks go, that is incredibly thorough.
Yeah, that's a very thorough prank, and especially not knowing that the person is going to have enough oxygen to live, and the fact that you knew, at least it's when you put them in the box, that they were conscious and alive because she spoke to him.
That's right.
And so, of course, that none of that works.
Right.
Like that, the cops, the jury, and the district attorney's office, whatever they call them over there, they're able to. The district attorney's office is able to paint a narrative that the jury finds him guilty on.
I believe it's referred to as the Crown Court.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe so.
Yeah. LCC brings up, I think it's the Leeds Crown Court.
I'm not sure on that one.
Me neither. I'm not going to look right now.
And so Marcin they convict him of the crime, and he is sentenced to 20 years in prison. And Patrick, as Mike stated a second ago, Patrick was cleared of the attempted murder charge. And I wish I knew what the details of that were, because they had to have brought up some sort of incident where when this whole situation started, Patrick was not aware of the end result, that the kidnapping would not have resulted in her death. That's the only way that I can think that, or he struck a deal and he testified against Marcin, which we don't know.
That is a good, that's a good point.
That's a possibility as well.
Because here in Texas, if you are the accomplice to helping your buddy murder someone, you also get the murder charge.
You get the murder charge, yeah. Everybody who's involved. It's like if you're the wheelman. Say you're the driver, and you and your buddies go rob a bank. They're in there robbing the bank. One of the guys in there shoots and kills somebody. Everybody gets the murder charge. Capital murder, yeah, because you're in the process of another felony. The wheel guy sitting outside in the car that never even went to the bank, he gets the murder charge too.
That's right, yeah. And I did look. It is the Leeds Crown Court.
Nice.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, I did.
Good job.
I remembered.
Yeah, you did.
I remembered.
You remembered. You're good. And so Patrick gets 4 years. Marcin gets 20. And I believe, I did look into this, I believe he was eligible for parole after doing half. Because...
You talking about Patrick? Or Marcin?
Marcin.
Oh, okay. And
Patrick was still, at 18 years old, considered a juvenile.
Yeah.
Even though he was 18. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't be surprised if he did a minimal amount of time and then was placed on some sort of supervised probation or something like that.
I would think that'd probably be right.
But after this had all taken place, they went back and searched Marcin's place after the event happened, and they found explosive material inside of his home that could be used to make a bomb. And so very casual. And so in an odd twist of how all this, I don't know if that was something that he considered maybe using against his girlfriend, if Michelina was actually supposed to die in a car bomb or something. Like, I don't know, but he got convicted of having explosives in his house, and he got another 8 years with that. And from what I've seen, some people have talked about, well, he does the 20 and he does the 8, but what I found was that the sentences are running concurrent.
Oh, concurrently. Okay.
So he's actually going to serve his time, and before he's even eligible for parole on the attempted murder and the kidnapping, he's going to have completed the whole 8 years.
Yeah.
So technically, since this happened in 2011.
Yeah, we're coming up on a possible probation.
On a possible parole situation for him. And I did look to see if I could find anything about if he had been paroled at the time, but he hasn't, as far as I know. Mm-hmm. And hopefully, if their system is kind of set up the way ours is, hopefully Michelina or her family or someone can go and either deliver or mail in some sort of an impact statement every time that he's eligible for parole, because she still fears for her life right now.
Absolutely.
And this isn't old enough. This is an old enough case for it to not matter.
No.
She has legitimate reasons to be scared for her life from this guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because she's 35, 36 now.
Yeah.
He's probably he's our age. I mean, he's 37, 38 years old, maybe something like that. And so his possibility of getting out of prison while he's alive, unless something happened to him in prison, is 100%.
Mm-hmm. And I know that I definitely feel like I hope some things do happen to him in prison. Now, I'm not exactly clear on what prison is like in England, but if it's bad, I hope it's bad for him.
Yeah, because he definitely deserves anything that happens, because that's a pretty light sentence, in my opinion, based off of what he did.
Right. And in true crime, you see that a lot. Like, the difference between attempted murder and, of course, the actual commission of murder is a huge difference when you're talking about sentences. 20 is still good. Yeah, 20.
Yeah, it's still good. I mean, I think now that we know everything that she went through and all the situations, we can always say it should have been more. But you also have to take into consideration what is if they have minimums, or the fact that he probably did not have a criminal history before this. All of that stuff is going to go into the sentencing of his crime. And so if he had never been in trouble and this was his first charge of any kind, it's obviously a bad one, but that could have played in. I know a guy that when I was working at the jail that killed his wife, And he was in the military. He worked for sort of a law enforcement, not really law enforcement, it was kind of government type deal. And he killed his wife. And I believe, even though it was murder, I think he got 20 years.
Yeah.
So it's not uncommon.
No.
But it would be because he had this, years of service, and everything that goes, and never been in trouble. He had all this, it's like, okay, you got 20 years, but he also didn't take it to trial. And that's one of those things that sometimes you don't hear about, is that I know in Texas, especially like in the county that I worked in, if the DA's office offers you a plea deal, and I'm saying this only if you're guilty.
Yeah.
The DA's office offers you a plea deal and you're guilty, you take the plea deal.
That's right.
Because if you don't, you go to trial,
they're going to throw the book at you.
You're going to get a whole lot more. This guy took the plea deal. No one had to go to trial. No one had to relive those incidences. It was just, boom, it's done. Sign some paperwork and go to prison.
Yeah, but not Marcin.
No, not Marcin.
I wish I could have been a fly on the wall or in the crowd where he got a chance to try to explain to a jury, if they had one, that this was a prank.
Yeah.
Just imagine his dumb face explaining that, where he's like, seriously, guys, I didn't want to kill her. I only meant to scare her. So I drive-stunned her twice in the neck with 300,000 volts, taped her up into a box after that, and then buried her in a hole and put a log on top. Classic prank, guys.
Yeah. Do you not see this?
Yeah.
Do you not kind of see how funny it is?
That
like
is
after now that we're
slapper.
talking, now we're talking about it in court, and we're like, "That's funny, right, guys?"
Yeah.
Y'all are, this is funny, right?
And the jury's just
stone faced,
just
like
squinting through eyes, like,
"You idiot!"
What?
And
That's absurd.
And he looks like an idiot too.
Yeah, he does.
And that's another thing, just real quick before we wrap this up. That's another thing I wanted to talk about, is that this plan, and we talk about this a lot in the Murder Project, because I try to understand what people are going through when they're in these moments, and then what happens after these moments. So let's say that Marcin was successful in his attempt, and Michelina died in the box in the ground, covered up. What's the play after that? Because
he's got to find a new lady.
Well, problem number one is that he went and used her ATM card to pull out $500 from the ATM. Yeah. Right after he attempted to murder her.
Yeah, so even if she was eventually reported missing, not by him, I'm assuming.
No.
In this scenario we're creating. But then they're like, well, when was the last time anybody saw her? Oh, this time. Weird. She's got bank activity on her card.
Yeah, because they're going to go look at all. The first thing people are going to, if it's a legit missing person situation, is they're going to start trying to figure out. First, you're going to talk with people. Marcin is not going to give them a whole lot of information. He's going to be like, well, I was over here with Patrick.
Over playing video games.
Did you guys not hear me? I was with Patrick.
Yeah.
And we were playing video games. And they're like, okay, so you haven't seen her in several hours. No, we're supposed to go shopping, but she stood me up. Whatever. And they're like, okay, so what time was that at? And people, I think, don't realize how specific police officers are in their questioning.
That's right.
They're like, I don't know, it was a couple hours ago. And they're like, when though?
Yeah.
And they're like, I don't know.
What is
really,
a couple of hours?
I wasn't paying attention. What's the last thing you remember doing?
Yeah.
Oh, this. Okay, what time was that at?
Yeah.
Oh, and then you don't realize that they will chip away at these stories.
That's right.
And they will get you. They will get you to fumble because they know exactly, a skilled interrogator knows exactly what to do in ways that they can get this information from you if you're just going to try to play dumb. And so you're going to have this bank activity. And I would assume that probably in 2011, England would have had cameras inside their ATMs. This is not technology that someone wouldn't have. So they're going to probably see Marcin taking money out of her account.
Right.
And then where does it go after that? He's going to be like, oh, well, she owed me some money. Okay. So when did you get her card?
You're right.
And then that's going to go back. Okay. When did she give you the card? And this all starts playing into this. And I think that the reason I point this out is because there's not a whole lot of thought that went into this, as we've seen in a lot of cases, past the assault.
Right.
Nothing was really thought out. I mean, obviously, they dug the hole. They knew where they were going with the plan, but there was no thought into what was going to happen after the plan was executed.
No, you're right.
And it would have fallen apart, I believe, very quickly.
Oh, yeah. And we're just going to, I would definitely assume that when this starts getting more serious and more time is going by, Patrick he probably would have flipped.
Yeah.
He'd have been like, oh, man. If he did something to her and you helped him, you're going to the joint.
Yeah.
You're going to the pen.
You know what they do to you in the joint?
Yeah, you're
He's
young.
He's like, you're young and you're pretty.
Yeah, that's right. You got all your teeth.
Yeah.
You got a pretty mouth. You're
Yeah.
not going to have a good time in the pen, buddy.
Yeah, remind me sometime, and I will tell you, maybe on the Two Not Cops.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this story about my dad and what he told me, like when guys go to prison. You remember that? Me telling you the story about
That's right.
the peach? Yeah, I'll tell you that story maybe some other time.
I do.
Because it literally scared the life out of me.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, I can't wait for that. It's going to be a good episode.
If Patrick would have went into an interrogation room and the police officers would have started giving him that spill, I think he probably would have flipped pretty quick.
Right, and then this whole thing would have fallen apart. He'd have taken him to the scene. They'd have found her remains. Then both of them would have gone to the joint for a significantly longer amount of time.
Yeah, and for murder.
But what's important is that she survived.
Yes.
She was patient. She kept herself collected enough to escape. And even though she went through something horribly traumatic that's going to follow her for the rest of her life, this is a tale of survival.
Yeah.
She took her time. She used that damn wedding ring, that damn engagement ring, which I guarantee she probably never wants to see again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would have let the police keep that one.
Or it's the opposite.
Yeah, maybe
she wants to keep it as a memento for saying, like, I overcame this.
I survived,
That's right, yeah. And she hopes he rots in there, and I do too.
Yeah. And that's one of those things where, like I said in the beginning, when we're talking about these tales of survival, is that I think in this situation, she did everything that she could right.
That's right.
She remained calm. She stayed in this. Maybe the situation doesn't, like we talked about with putting the bag over her head or something like that. Maybe it doesn't work out, every single time a scenario is like this played out. But in this particular situation, she did the right thing. She remained calm. Even in certain situations where she had a bout of panic, she was able to calm herself down, focus on what she had to do, and it ended up saving her life. And I think that's fantastic.
That is fantastic. And she gets to raise her kid, and that douche waffle gets to eat really starchy meals in prison for the rest of his life. And I hope he's hitting that little...
Do a lot of push-ups.
I hope he's doing them knuckle push-ups. Yeah. Otherwise, that form's going to disintegrate.
He ain't got them steroids anymore. All right. Well, I think that's where we're going to leave it for this episode of The Murder Project. I'm so glad that we got to sit down and talk to you guys. It's been couple weeks, and we really love doing it. So thank you guys so much, and we'll see you guys next time.
Later.
Goodbye. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening to this episode of The Murder Project. We appreciate it so much. Our numbers are going up, our downloads are going up, and we have you guys to thank for that.
Thank you so much.
If you want to find us on any of the social medias, please go to Facebook and type in The Murder Project. If you need to search for us in the box, type in facebook.com/podcasttmp. Also, a reminder on Facebook, all of our episodes are now available on Facebook at our Murder Project page. Just go to the page, scroll over to where it says podcast, click on it, and you can listen to every single episode now on Facebook. It goes in the background. It won't mess you up. You can listen to all of them. Please tell your friends. If you're looking for us on Instagram, you can find us at The Murder Project. And if you're looking for us on the old Twitter box, we are at The Murder Pod. Also, don't forget, if you need to send us an email, if you have a question, comment, anything like that, you can email us at contact@themurderproject.com. And as always, Mike, myself, or both of us will get back to you. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening to this episode. We thank you so much. We look forward to bringing you another episode of The Murder Project. It'll be the Two Not Cops episode. Stay tuned for that one. We'll see you guys next time. But before I go, please remember,
head up, eyes up,
and stay alive.